In 1848, the forces of reaction had put down popular uprisings across the Italian peninsula. The Bourbons were restored in Sicily, the Pope returned to Rome, Venetia was subjugated back under Habsburg rule, and the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia had been defeated. Yet among nationalists and revolutionaries, the dream of a unified Italy remained as potent as ever. The individual Italian fiefdoms, almost all ruled by foreign dynasties, could probably have been overcome at any time by nationalists. But always looming in the background was the threat from Vienna. So long as Austria claimed dominion over the peninsula, nationalism was held in check by the might of the Habsburg army. The only solution then was to defeat it in open battle. No revolution could possibly do so. It would require a professional military. Of the Italian states, only one possessed such a force, and the will to use it. The Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia had long sought a way to harness Italian nationalism for its own benefit. In 1848, spurred on by nationalist revolutions, it had invaded Austrian territories, only to be driven out decisively the following year. The new king, Victor Emmanuel, still dreamed of exploiting nationalism to seize the rich provinces of Lombardy and Venetia, but even he could not hope to drive the Austrian army out alone. The man left to solve this puzzle was a short, shabbily dressed, and brilliant aristocrat in his early 40s, a small landowner who had discovered his talents first in journalism and then in politics, Count Cavour. In just a few short years he was to reverse the Italian settlement completely. Edward Crankshaw described his political genius as more reminiscent of the great oil kings half a century later than of Bismarck, to whom he is often compared. Unlike Bismarck, who only gambled when he had to, Cavour was prepared to roll the dice again and again, even when the odds were against him. He had one overriding goal upon his appointment as Prime Minister in 1852. To break Austrian hegemony over Italy. This was an interesting aim, considering Cavour himself lacked any deep sentiment for nationalism, and initially referred to his project simply as the aggrandizement of Piedmont. Yet ejecting the Habsburgs would allow him to save the cause of moderate liberalism and monarchy for which he stood, perhaps eventually crafting a new Italian nation in the image of Piedmont's constitution, rather than revolutionary republicanism. In objective terms, the power imbalance between Vienna and Turin was stark. Although the small Piedmontese army would have to form the core of any force that liberated Italy, there was no way it could face the Habsburgs alone. Cavour's first task, therefore, was to secure an ally capable of matching Austrian martial strength. Russia and Prussia were, for differing reasons, out of the question. That left Britain, or more practically France. Before anything else, Cavour needed to gain their sympathy for the Italian cause. Fortunately, he did not have to wait long. In 1853, the Crimean War erupted, shattering at last the old concert of Europe. Britain and France formed a united front against Russian expansion. Austria was nominally the ally of St. Petersburg, and Cavour hoped Franz Joseph would cast his lot in with Nicholas I, firmly alienating Vienna from the west. But the young Austrian emperor was shrewd and, under the guidance of his Anglophile foreign minister Bull, Austria remained aloof, tentatively favoring Britain and France. This meant neither London nor Paris would be interested in schemes for weakening Habsburg power anytime soon. So Cavour decided to gamble. Originally favoring neutrality, in 1855, backed by the king, he reversed course and declared war on Russia, dispatching a small expeditionary force to the Crimea. Much of Turin was aghast. Britain, though sympathetic to Italian nationalism, had little ability, or desire, to actively support the cause. France, however, was different. Napoleon III, newly victorious in the Crimea and now secure on his throne, looked for new opportunities to influence the European chessboard. Always sympathetic to nationalism, he saw in Piedmont the perfect opportunity to support a cause he had long favored while extending French influence at the same time. Writing confidentially to Walewski, he told Cavour on his final night in Paris, "What I might do for Piedmont and for Italy." This was ironic, for the French foreign minister detested the Italian statesman. It was also a great risk. Cavour decided to stake everything on France and the mercurial figure of Napoleon, whose price would be high and whose reliability questionable. Again Cavour gambled. He devoted his energies to preparing the Piedmontese economy for war. As Crankshaw describes it, everything was directed to one end. A fight to the finish between a tiny part of a new state in the top left-hand corner of Italy and the colossal military machine of Austrian imperialism. It was probably the greatest geostrategic gamble of the 19th century. If Piedmont lost for a second time, there would not be a third. If she failed to force a confrontation with Austria, bankruptcy would follow due to the immense burden Cavour placed on the economy. Before anything else, however, he had to decisively overcome Walewski's opposition and convince Napoleon to commit himself. After months of slow diplomacy, the right opportunity finally appeared in 1858, when an Italian revolutionary attempted to assassinate Napoleon with a bomb. The emperor was unharmed but shaken. The attacker, Orsini, wrote from jail, "Remember that so long as Italy is not independent, the peace of Europe and your Majesty's life are but an empty dream. Set my country free, and the blessings of 25 million people will follow you everywhere and forever."